So we're looking at this graph and we want to graph its inverse. So let's identify some points on the graph. First point I see is here, x is -2, y is 0. Another one I see would be here, x is -1, y is 1. Then we're going to see another point that's easily recognized because it's on a hash mark, x is 1, y is 2. And we look to see if we have a few more points that are easy for us to read. How about this one? X is 5, y is 3. And how about this one over here? X is 13, y is 4. So those I can see fairly easily because they are directly on the hash marks. So I have those 5. But I'd like to approximate a couple other points. For example, how about this point down here? So I don't know, maybe -2.8 and y is -3. So again, you see that not quite at -3. So -3 seems to be an asymptote. So just to kind of eyeball it, let's call it -2.8. X is -2.8, y is -3, approximately. And then if we come down here to the -6, I don't know, maybe -2.9 or -2.95. And that gives me a y value of -6. So I added those 2 points now to my list. So these are all the points on the function y equals f of x. We want to get y equals f inverse of x. We want to graph the inverse on the same axis. So I have to switch x and y. Remember, to an inverse function, x becomes y and y becomes x. So -2, 0 becomes 0, -2. -1, 1 becomes 1, -1. 1, 2 becomes 2, 1. 5, 3 becomes 3, 5. 13, 4 becomes 4, 13. -2.8, -3 becomes -3, -2.8, approximately. And -2.95, -6 becomes -6, -2.95. So I want to graph all of those points on Desmos. So let's see if I can do that. I need to pull up Desmos first. I'm going to graph those points and I'm going to try to connect them and see which way makes sense for me to connect them. So while that's loading, let's go ahead and find it. There we go. So the points that I have 0, -2. I have 1, -1. 2, 1. 3, 5. 4, 13. Which is going to be hard to see, 4, 13, I think. So we can see the way this thing is growing, heading that direction. Then -3, -2.8. I'll change that color to red to match the others. And then we had -6, -2.95. So what's happening here? What is this? Does this graph look like? So we see we have an asymptote down here. The asymptote will be at the line y equals -3. It'll never quite get there. It's getting very, very close. So it's asymptoting this way, and then it's growing, and then it's growing, and then it's growing, and then it's growing to get up to that 413. Now, what is this graph? What do I think it is? Well, let me see if I have it correctly here. I think this may be the following graph. You don't have to know this. So that is my F inverse. My original graph that was on the other page was as follows. So that was all those points that you gave me the first time. Again, I don't expect you to be able to look at that graph and identify the equation. So the black function is the F function that we saw before. Let's make sure we see what that looks like. So just to kind of go back and show you that. Okay, so this is what we have. This was our original function through -2, 0, 1, 2, etc. -2, 0, 1, 2, etc. So this black function is the original function. We listed all those points. Then we created these red points by switching the x and y's that you had given me. And then we have constructed the graph of this purple function, which is the graph of y equals F inverse of x.